Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, Joey McGuire talks position battles, including one Red Raider forcing his way onto the field at a surprising spot, and we embrace PUMPJACK pride, baby. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you and diving in head first to all things Red Raider football today, as we've got some portions of fall camp now in the rear view, including a scrimmage. We'll get to some thoughts from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire on what's played out so far, specifically involving some position battles in several different directions that are worth noting. I also want to get to, in general, a question I have about sort of the pace of an offense or a defense as you get into a camp scenario, and maybe who should be expected to be a little bit further ahead sooner or vice versa. And that's based in a comment I got from a brilliant football mind in my life, Chris, who was taken aback by what he had seen at some recent Red Raider football practices. I'll explain in just a moment. And you see it on the screen, Pump, Jack, Pride, new decorations at the house. The Jones has got a new lawn ornament, which can also be a risky venture. Toe the line of taste very carefully in that regard. I'll explain on that coming up in just a moment. If you need explanation for that, you're behind. Check the internet. Chris, let's kick off our conversation, however, getting back to Coach McGuire, getting back to camp, and him being asked about some of these position battles that are playing out so far. And there are actually some interesting and maybe even to some surprising answers within this.
I think there's still going to be a battle at right tackle, but I think Jacob Ponton's really, fighting his tail off to be that guy. I think there's a battle at star because John Curry wants to be on the football field, and so somebody's going to have to sit down if that dude makes his mind up and says that you're not starting in front of me. And that's what he's doing right now, so somebody might get Wally pipped. There's a battle there with Star, but John's doing a really good job. There's a good battle between John Carlos and Terrence Carter, but they're both playing so much. I look at them as starters anyway.
Chris mentions a couple of positions either side of the ball. I know in talking with you defensively as well, we'll include some others. So what do you make of it early through a portion of fall camp?
And I want, so we're clear here, getting Wally pipped. What does that mean exactly? You and I know that references back into the 1920s Lou Gehrig, but in summation, to lose your job or position, especially to someone who takes over temporarily due to illness, injury, or other absence, and then permanently retains said position. So that's the only reason that Wally Pipp is even a household name to sports fans and all that, because Lou Gehrig would go on to be one of the greatest players ever. So we'll get to what drew that response from Coach McGuire in a minute. But yeah, right tackle, star, and corner. Kicker, maybe I think he kind of touched on tight end, although I don't really count that. I think Terrence Carter, John Carlos Miller, yes, they're starters. They're both playing. They're both it's like John Carlos and Mason and Conyers and all those guys last year. Yeah, they're all kind of playing. I mean, so it's like, what's the differentiation? But some of these other ones, yeah, I think that you lean to where, okay, you're leaning more heavily to one guy. The right tackle deal is interesting. This is not what elicited the Wally Pipp response, but this is a Jacob Ponton spot right now, and I think Hunter Zambrano has had, he missed arguably the last season because of some hip things. There's a back issue, fairly minor. I think he's like, at the time people are watching and listening, consuming this show right now, he should be cleared and be back on this day. And you're still 19 days away from the season opener as of today. So still plenty of time. But I would say it's fair to suggest that right tackle is not been solidified yet. And it's also worth noting, like offensive line wise, that's what's tricky about this, just the offense in general. There's been a lot of pieces kind of in, kind of out. You're still waiting on Vinny Scurry, the Zambrano stuff. Cash Cleveland's been out, and these are all minor. There's nothing like major here to where it's like, okay, they're done. You haven't had any of that yet, but you haven't been able to build up a lot of consistency and chemistry and continuity there with the group. Even Davion Carter, for good reason, he wasn't there on Saturday. He was graduating, so he missed the scrimmage. They're your potential starting right guard. So it's led to some other guys getting chances and getting involved. And I think that this is a position that there's a lot of focus on, and understandably so. This is what led to the I will movement. But it's going to remain in flux a bit. The one thing I can say, though, is that you have a lot more experienced options available to you than you had before. And again, you're managing a few guys. You're trying to like get them to the end of camp. You're trying to, but again, there's still a few questions there, and I guess right tackle is one of those.
Yeah, and of course, I'm really interested in the name Ponton because it always seems like one that's brought up immediately when we consider, say, the next wave of impact Red Raiders. I don't know when the time for him to break through is, or because it seems like for everybody, there comes a point where you kind of know whether it's well-defined or not. This is a year where some noise needs to be made. Different positions kind of lend themselves to obviously a different number of guys being able to make an impact throughout the year. Typically an offensive line, you hope, if you have some health luck, is fairly solidified. But he's been an interesting name for a while, Chris. I think you brought him up, countless times when talking about, hey, who may be a professional prospect high on the list of this roster moving into this year over the last couple. And you seem to always bring him up as one that still kind of, I guess, maybe off the radar, maybe not if you're a Locked On Texas Tech viewer or listener because you're in the know. But he's one of the more intriguing, right, that sort of hadn't been in the spotlight yet. But if you are one of the everydayers, one of the sick and twisted, you are familiar with his name.
He is in the midst of the potential being realized phase. Like he's kind of in that, like, okay, this isn't just, oh man, he's going to be really good, and nor is he, okay, we're there. No, he's now kind of moved into the, okay, we're starting to see it. Like he's starting to knock on the door. Should we answer? I don't know. Hey man, tell him we're not home yet. I don't know where this is going to go, but I think this is good for the group in general because I've seen some suggest that, oh, well, they're going to start this guy or that guy because they paid him this much. I just can't emphasize enough. They don't give a damn what they paid somebody back 6 to 8 months ago. If they're not the best option, they will not earn that starting spot. And Cody Campbell, right out of his mouth back in it's like January or February when he sat down with some of the tech media things, and one of the quotes he gave, and I'll just remind everybody of it now, was nothing I would love more than for one of these young kids to come in and beat one of these veterans than we signed. They're not worried about what they paid or some criticism of, golly, well, that's a bunch of no. That just doesn't enter into their psyche because the way they would view it, because they maybe compensated somebody and brought him in here, this pushed the young player to be better than he ever thought he could be, maybe much earlier. So it's all, and still you get the depth and the experience and all that because these seasons are a marathon. I mean, what is true on August the 30th may not even become close to what is true on October 1st, and certainly not November the 15th. I mean, it's and that's takes an army. Yeah, it takes a village. It takes an army. It takes all the things. And so you're trying to mitigate risk by throwing a lot of assets to this deal. Let it get sorted out, and it creates competition. You have depth. You have experience depth. and all that. So this is just what he stated yesterday about the right tackle spot, but we'll see kind of what shakes.
Let me ask you, and you're right. I mean, the conversation just in a matter of 30 days could shift dramatically with any of this stuff. It's kind of like at a semester break when you go from, say, driver's ed to health, and they're talking child delivery. You're still asking questions about turn signals, and everybody's just confused. Things evolve. That's why you got to stay locked in or stay locked on. But let me ask you purely from a football standpoint. This has nothing to do with salaries or money or investment or whatever. From a football standpoint, if someone like Ponton were to emerge and you're saying this is our starter at this position when we open up our season, would that constitute kind of a plan gone awry or some type of uh-oh? First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team at the college basketball tournament live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments. We all know there's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. With Gametime Picks, curation makes it even easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the one and only lowest price guarantee, which means you get the lowest price or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Plus, peace of mind with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price. Guaranteed. Would that constitute kind of a plan gone awry or some type of uh-oh? Because I didn't know of him to be a plan A in any way coming into camp. I might have just missed something, but what do you think really in a football context? Is that disappointing? Is that encouraging to see that possibly happen? And we're not there, but hypothetically.
I would guess you would get opinions elicited on all fronts there. I think you need to judge the full body of work before you slap a label on it like plan gone awry or this is great because one of the young. I mean, let it all play out because as we know, things change because you could say, oh man, if Ponton starts, what are we doing? And then 2 months from now, you'll be like, this is the best money we ever could have spent on some of these offensive line pieces. Right. If they continue to emerge and finally get healthy or fill in based on an injury or whatever. I mean, so, and what do we care? You know, I mean, I'm trying to put the best five out there at any given moment all the time. And, you know, Vinny Scurry goes down against Washington State last year. Oh no. And then you have to shuffle some pieces around and it was a work in progress much of last year. Ideally, in a perfect world, you had your five set right now. You're locked and loaded. The chemistry's good to go. You're a well-oiled machine. That's just not where you're at yet. And I wrote this on RedRaidersports.com, but like Sampson at left tackle and Sheridan Wilson at center are put them in a Sharpie. I mean, and Davion Carter at right guard is the closest thing to that. But then at left guard and right tackle, you've got because Joey also went out of his way to mention Daniel Sill. I know Holton Hendricks has been doing really well. Connor Carty, Ellis Davis. I mean, there's some other, you know, and then you still don't have like a Cash Cleveland working into the mix yet because he's been dinged up. But thankfully, you still got a little less than 3 weeks away before the opener. And then also, thankfully, those first two opponents aren't just some, you know, monster that you can't handle, and you should be able to get some guys some playing time.
That's right. That's a lot of offensive line talk, I know, but it's necessary. And to somebody like me, one of the sexiest football conversations to have, all right? I know you're all enamored with the points and the quarterback. Who's on Mount Rushmore? I know you want to do all these. Look, we got to talk big uglies, and that's just the offensive side. We still got plenty to come on the defensive side, and that's where I want to angle your attention next, Chris, because I'm curious. I mean, you've obviously covered a ton of fall camps, nose to nose, up close and personal, and they all sort of have their own identity as it relates to the team. And, hey, the offense is doing this, or the defense is having this success. So as an example, turnovers are part of the conversation here recently. So we're thinking, we love that. We even got t-shirts printed up already. Take 3. We've had them for a while, looking to break them out again. But do we like it for the offense? So these types of questions, in your mind, where do you feel like when you get into camp, like who's quicker to maybe be a little bit more ahead? Is it the defense? Is it the offense? And I'm basing this, Chris, in a question I got or a comment I got from an old football coach of mine. And again, a football coach of mine. So, this guy has seen some real talent. And he was just texting to me. He's a Red Raider, long time, lifelong, whatever. He's seen a lot of Tech football. He was recently at a practice, and he's telling me our defense is as advertised. And then he does actually go on to say, I don't know if the offense is struggling or the defense is the best we've ever had. So I think a lot of us trying to figure that out. But when you kick off a camp, what do you expect, offense versus defense, as far as the timeline for progress?
A lot of it is based on personnel, like in continuity, like what all you have back. Because there's been some years where I would say the offense should be far ahead because they've been together for 2 or 3 years and they've been running the same system and the same plays and all that stuff. This is kind of a fresh start for a lot. Based on there's a lot of new parts from a player standpoint, and you're dealing with different schemes. I would have thought that would have been how I would have answered that the defense would have been ahead of the offense just in general. And part of it is because some of the offensive line pieces have been missing. So you've been lacking some continuity there. Plus the quarterback missed most of the spring, and I think that is some of it as well. You've had a starting wideout like in Reggie Virgil to get kind of, managed early on in camp. So, there's some things there that I would have said that just gave the defense an advantage. Plus, you're not trying to overwhelm people with scheme on the defense. You're just turning guys loose, and they happen to be really good on paper. And I think that's probably what your former coach probably saw is that, because I want to get to these other position battles in a second. But like Coy Aiken went out of his way after the scrimmage and was asked about the defense, I think, and the offensive defense somehow. But he just brought it up on his own. It's like his eyes just lit up, and he starts looking at people and shaking his head. He's like, "These guys are really good, man." And like we have to remind ourselves of this that we're getting our licks in too, and we've because I think during the scrimmage. There were some touchdowns scored, some red zone stuff scored. The running backs apparently did really well. For those concerned about the offensive line, your running backs apparently did very well in said scrimmage. Joey went out of his way repeatedly to point this out and all that. But I mean, Coy was like, it's defense is going to be a problem. I don't know if we'll see a better group all year. So, and this is ideally anytime in a camp or a spring game, it's all the same. Something good happens, well, there's got to be something bad, right? Because one team wins or dominates or one side of the ball wins. Well, that must mean that the other one really sucks. Or maybe it's just that group is just elite. But I think right now you're seeing some balance. But I do think that your defense is really earned some serious respect in fall camp to this point, and they certainly did over the summer and even going back to spring. So,
well, I'm sure you would mirror, Chris, because you've seen them on level ground, just physically a different group. So whatever that means versus your own offense, physically a different group.
Passing the eye test, yeah. I mean, it's like when I was at Media Day a week or so ago. It's just like it's a different looking type of athlete for sure. And I've stated this. I have a fortunate. Being on the sideline, and so it's a good. I'm able to eyeball it. Like when you've been on the field before with like a LSU in a bowl game or Ole Miss in a non-conference game or Oklahoma or Texas or whatever over the years, and you could insert some other opponents there too. It's just like you look at it and go, "Oh yeah, there's a difference here." Like, and it's just in your face. You may have 5 to 12 guys that look the part. They have 60. And and now that's not the case anymore. You look like those teams physically, size and depth, and just like lots of. I mean, even some of these freshmen like Chet O'Feely and your Ansel Nador and your Eddie Smiths and Charles Andersons, like some of those young defensive linemen that we're not even really going to spend a whole lot of time talking about. They are extremely impressive looking individuals, and they're just waiting for their turn, which may be another year away.
Let's stick with what's happening defensively, because I guess to me the most interesting thing I heard from Coach McGuire, and we've seen discussed here locally in some recent days, is John Curry in a star category. Yes, to me the most interesting thing I heard from Coach McGuire, and we've seen discussed here locally in some recent days, is John Curry in a star category and all that's involved there, because there's just an interesting cast of characters at that position. When you talk about guys like Mike Dinkle, or I guess AJ McCarty, I think is in that category also. And they're guys that can sort of, I guess, mostly either spin up or spin down more to the back end or closer to the line of scrimmage, depending upon who we're talking about. But Curry flashes when he's on the field. I'm not surprised. He's demanding entry back onto the field. He wants to be there. But what do you make of this? This seems kind of like a new development.
Well, if we go back 2 or 3 months ago, we've been trying to tell everybody about John Curry. Who's the guy that could come off the – however it's been phrased, he's always one of those guys that we've been talking about, even since back in the spring. So what has happened here is that AJ McCarty a little bit dinged up, Miguel Dingle a little bit dinged up, and I just think that I'm gonna make a guess here, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am. Just I know Joey and the way that they do things, and a lot of times this is how this stuff comes out, because it's just like the offensive line. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's been where or who's supposed to go at a certain spot. You try to get the best 5 on the field. So I think what has happened is that everybody's looked at each other after breaking down practices and film and all the things, and it just said, we've got to find a way to get John Curry on the field. Like, what are we doing? Like, he's one of our best 11. Figure it out. And I think that this is – so then you have a couple of issues. Well, let's put it – because what you're dealing with here is an extremely smart player. This is – if he were to like stay at star and play there, I don't know if that's where he would stay. I mean, when Jacob leaves, maybe he moves back to middle linebacker and he can now be your ringleader and your smart player that gets everybody lined up, because he can more than handle that. But right now, this is about getting your best players on the field, and I think he is one. And I think he's not. I don't think he's like asked to do this or that. They've just said, let's go do this. And I mean, Joe, you heard what Joey said. If he wants to go do that, then he's going to Wally Pip somebody. I don't know who he's referencing. I don't know what all that means for the depth at interior linebacker, or, what happens when Dingle and McCarty are back and rolling. But I can just tell you that based on the way Joey talked, I mean, Curry didn't do anything to hurt himself during that scrimmage, and it probably only helped his case to Wally Pip somebody. I think what did he have, an interception? This is a name. If you want to sound really smart with your buddies, man, you go talk up John Curry, because he deserves the chatter. He's just very smart and makes plays, got a nose for it. Sheil Wood has talked about him on multiple occasions. So,
and I'm wholly biased, rooting like hell for him, because I love the headline, "Local Boy Makes Good," 806 native. So just hoping the pride and joy of the LBK can find his way on the field full time. At the risk of getting too into the weeds here, if I didn't know it was the Locked On Texas Tech fam family I was speaking to, and ones that have made it almost 30 minutes into the program at this portion, I may not even bring it up, but I know these are the hardcore of the hardcore, Chris. I want to ask you about the linebacker log jam, because it kind of seems like coming into the year, there were a lot of questions. At least that's what we typically get as far as text from the mob or something like that. Like, hey, is this going to be a Rodriguez-Curry combo? Is it Ben Roberts? Because some perceived his year last year as a disappointing one. Is Ben Roberts somebody that's losing reps to Curry? And then there was, I guess, a more realistic picture of, no, it's actually more a combo of Roberts and Curry, and it's Rodriguez that is the guy, I guess, that's ahead of Curry. This is why I'm saying at risk of getting in the weeds. How are those three guys actually sorted out? And if he is one of those that has to be on the field, why is it not just a Rodriguez-Curry combo? Does that mean that Roberts is too good to lose those snaps? Or I hope any of that makes sense and you can interpret some of that. But
it's a very fair question, and I think what you're hearing is that they want all three of them on the field.
That's what I hope is the answer.
You're trying to figure out ways for all three of those guys to be on the field at the same time, because those are three different positions. You've got the Sam, the Mike, and then the star. And so, and then, Brock, I'm going to mess up his last name, Gawas. I think I said that wrong. He's a freshman. He's been doing really good. You still have Bryce Ramirez. And like Dingle could come in and he could be a star still, or they could move, so we just don't know what all this is going to look like just yet. But they're trying. This is what Shieldwood's task is: put the best guys on the field in positions where they can succeed. And this was somewhat necessitated by issues with AJ and Dingle, but also like, okay, well, this dude is really good everywhere else we've put him. Let's put him here because he may be one of our best guys in general. All he does is make plays. And then what did he do? But John Curry just went and excelled at star. So does he stay there? He might. He might.
Really interesting. And good for him to be demanding that type of conversation or attention to this point in camp. And I guess
these are great. These are great things for your team. Like when you have guys pushing through and like taking people's spots, there's nothing but positives here, because it doesn't mean that the other guys that got their spot taken, that they suck all of a sudden. They just, like the talent rose, the cream rised. I mean, whatever. And then you're going to need all parties as we go through this whole thing.
I may be wrong on this, but when you bring up Wally Pipp, I interpret injury to be a part of that scenario. So I may have missed something too. If it's a Dingle or McCarty issue that's injury related, is it just outplaying other guys?
They're minor issue. They're not. This is not long term at all. They just missed a few days here and there, but I guess not healthy enough to go in the scrimmage. And keep in mind, Wally Pipp, he missed his day because of a headache, and so Lou Gehrig. Right? Yeah, it was a headache. So injury or not, but that was back in if memory serves, it was like the 1925, I think is when that happened. So,
jeez, Wally, the original soy boy, it sounds like.
And I know we need to talk about pump jacks, but one other thing I want to mention before we move on real fast is like the corner.
Yeah.
We kind of thought that was Mo Horn and Bryce Pollock that kind of had that on lockdown. And Dante Balfour is, I think, said, not so fast. We see you, Lee Corso. Happy belated birthday, sir. But not so fast, my friend. So Dante Balfour, and Joey was even asked, you start a game tomorrow. Like, what are your start? He's like, I don't know. It would be two of those three. Again, these are good things. These are positives because that means the competition every day is really good. Nobody, it just pushes everybody. And this is nothing but showing you that you have a pretty deep football team here.
All right, you're right. Before we get out of here, we should mention this just to alert anybody that might have taken an extended nap over the weekend as to new decorations at Jones Stadium. And this courtesy of our beloved oil and gas community out there and many other supporters of it, which, by the way, if you've got like a toothbrush, if you live indoors, if you enjoy air conditioning, basic cable through fiber optics, really anything on earth, you should be a supporter of it. So if you did not see this, I would like to share, Chris, for those who are joining us on YouTube, an image of this. You're listening via podcast, just act like you can see with your ears. But this is an image you can see visually of a brand spanking new Texas Tech logoed and themed red and black, baby, pump jack. And this one, as I understand it, of two new installations. You just gotta love the headline that says 2 new glorious additions to the green space outside of Jones AT&T. So you could put them anywhere, but we're dropping them right in the green space. I certainly love that as well. And love everyone, it seems like, all the way around embracing this, Chris. I want to take a listen to Coach McGuire, who was actually asked about these new installations outside of Jones Stadium and the attention and reaction that they generated near and far.
I think that we're a university that we know who we are and we're proud of who we are and we don't shy away from it, and I think what's going on in that world, when you're talking about oil, I mean, we've got such an incredible engineering school. We produce a lot of engineers that are doing phenomenal jobs. And, I think some guys, Terry Fuller and Cody and Kevin Knowles and whoever else was a part of it, they're proud of it. And then it's also like, hey, if that's what you're going to say we're doing, and let's just say, well, here you go. We're not going to shy away from it.
All we're doing, cotton and crude, baby, sustaining and defending a nation. No big deal.
Drill, baby, drill. I think this university community, this isn't just the football program. This isn't just some like social media team. This isn't, segmented. This is like what you're seeing now is just like this movement to where the Texas Tech community, the large, institution that is Texas Tech and Lubbock, just embrace the heck out of the memes, the people celebrating it, the people making fun of it, the people jealous of it. They're just saying, you know what? I mean, like, bring it on. Yeah, here it is, right here. So, I mean, how many pictures you think are taken in front of that deal if you go win a Big 12 title? Because that's going to be.
It's not going to require that, Chris. It's going to be. I thought of that the day I saw the image. It'll be just like the fountain or the ring or any other thing on campus. People will be taking pictures in front of it.
That is now, and I think that's the point. That is now going to be one of the landmarks around campus. Yeah, but there's two of them. You can't miss them. They're basically in that green space just west of the stadium and all that. There's, I mean, I think you're just embracing who you are, and I love it. I think it's great. Lean into it.
Hell yeah. Piss on the Anwar Prairie chicken. I love that we're dropping it into the green space. What should we do with our green space? How about a biosphere? How about 2 pump jacks, red and black with Texas Tech on the side? Let's go. Shout out to everybody who helped to make that possible. All right, Chris, appreciate your time as always, my man. Enjoyed kicking off the week with you and plenty to dive into, of course, as we are rolling through camp and a season opener near. So I hope you're staying ready and getting limbered up. It's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, man, you got it. Keep hope alive. We are getting closer because we're breaking down scrimmages and things like that now. So that must mean that the real thing is right around the corner. But we'll get you there. Thanks for hanging with us.
Yes, and somebody who's got the idea to mass manufacture and distribute and or sell, of course, these as ornaments, trinkets, keychains, whatever. You also have become a wealthy individual now. So whoever can race to that line first, kudos to you. And we'll take a pair here on Locked On at Texas Tech. All right, for Chris, I'm Casey. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks for the time. Thanks to the everydayers for always being out there. And, of course, be sure to hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining the Matador Mob. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. And, as always, we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.